Afternoon everybody, Nick with Hobby Extreme, and today we got another build video. We actually got a patient on the table today. You guys recognize this plane from the last video. This is Ryan's AJ, and we're going to be completely gutting this plane and putting it into something cool. It's an airframe he's had for a minute. He's still probably going to get another one of these. He really loved it, but he wants to fly next weekend, and he's got a spare airframe, so why not? Let's get this thing put together real quick. And I want to take you guys along. So we're going to gut this thing, have everything organized, lay everything out, and then I'll show you the airframe that it's going to go in. Let's do it. Oh. Woo! Progress. So the tail and wings are now done. These are the servos that Ryan decided to go with. He's never flown Savax before, as far as I know. Seemed to really like them. He only got 3 flights on this airplane, as you know, but for the most part, seemed to really like them. They do draw a little bit more power, it seemed. He wasn't getting as many flights as he was with the JRs with these, so they're probably a little bit drawing a little bit more amperage. But for the price, I think they're really good. I'll have to look up what the price is, but I know he said that they were a lot cheaper than the average. So, also important thing with when you're taking part in an airplane is being organized. Having a parts tray, having everything laid out, all your parts and where you're going. I know all around it is kind of disorganized, but everything that I know that's going to go back in the airplane is in one spot. All the screws are in one spot. I'm not going to lose anything, and everything else can try to be so trying to keep it as organized as possible so that when we are putting the whole airplane back together, we don't lose it. So now we're working on the airframe. So let's go ahead and gut this thing, and then we finally get to see what the airframe looks like. Alright, the poor AJ is now completely gutted. Everything's out of it. So, it's a nice airplane. Sad to see it go. But if you guys ever wanted to see everything that goes into an airplane, this is pretty much it. This is the whole nervous system. So, we are going to be running an Aura in this airplane. He doesn't usually run the gyro in it, but it's just a nice distro. And also it's just a little convenient for switching radios. If you ever had to switch out a bad receiver, it takes 2 seconds to bind it because there's no programming in the radio. It's all in the Aura, so that kind of makes it a little bit more convenient in that sense. We have our wing servos, 4 of them. We have our 2 elevators servos. We have our rudder servo, and we have our throttle servo. We have our ignition right here, and then to control the ignition, we have an IBEC. This is the Aero Precision Advanced Radio, sorry, the AR IBEC. This thing's actually really nice. This is the first time I've actually seen one in person. It looks really, really nice. I like the plug that goes to it. Looks a little bit more like it's designed for what its purpose, other than the other IBECs that look like just a little board. This is our poor motor. Looks like the motor should be fine. We're gonna look it over, but the exhausts are definitely done. Definitely could probably aluminum weld this, but exhausts aren't that expensive, so I'm hoping the carb is good because we do need this carb. We do have another engine that we probably are going to put in the other airplane. If I look it over, and we'll decide from there. Our fuel tank, and then some wiring. And that's pretty much everything that goes into this. We do like these plugs for the wings. That makes it really convenient when you're putting the plane together. And yeah, so now let's go ahead and slap the new airframe on the table, and you guys get to see what it looks like. All right, so this is what we got. Not a new airframe, but it is a very cool one. This is an Extreme Flight Slick 580. It is actually I believe this is the Santiago Perez scheme. It's a very cool color. Really enjoy this scheme, and I don't see a lot of them anymore. So, but it's still a very modern airframe. Still quick releases on the horizontals and the canopy, and also the wings. And this is what it looks like. Still has quick releases, has freaking cobwebs because it's been sitting in his shop for a minute, not being built, and I finally persuaded him to take all the stuff out of that airframe, put it in this one. This is going to be should be a fun looking airplane. And is that Jace? Who is that? I think it is Jace back when he was with Extreme Flight, looking young. So yeah, we got the manual. We should have all the hardware. We got a new prop, a little bit of hardware pieces. So let's go ahead and start this process. This is the engine I think we're going to use. I'm still going to look it over as well. We were having some issues with this engine at one point in time. Mostly just carburetor issues. So we're probably going to try to put that carburetor on this airframe. It looks dirty. I'm a little bit worried about this carburetor because it did take a motor hit when it landed, as you saw. I'll run a clip of that happening again. Yeah, so it was a pretty hard hit right on the front of the engine. So hopefully this carburetor is still good. We are going to be using the same ignition that came from the other airplane. So we also got new pipes that we're going to be running. We got some proper length wire, which these are also the advanced radio extensions. They're pretty nice extensions. Yeah, it's just, I love how they made them. I love these little safeties that they put on the end of them. So those are going to be going for the tail. And yeah, we're going to take you through the process. Hopefully you guys learned something, and make sure that you drop a like, subscribe. It does help us out a little bit. And hopefully if you guys like enough, maybe I'll be able to build myself my next one. So this is Ryan's. This is not my airplane. I offered to build this airplane for him because I had a little bit extra time before I went out to work again. So hopefully that I can have this thing ready for him by next weekend. Because his dad is really busy, and he is also Ryan's working, so I have some spare time. I also really enjoy this, so I always enjoy when I get to build a new airplane. So, but yeah, let's get to work. All right, so Ryan's dad already had the horns go. Actually, I think when he bought this, Ryan bought this plane from another guy. I want to consider it used because it's never been flown, but he already had the horns and everything glued in, so I don't have to worry about that. So we're just going to be working on installing servos. Now, there's a very important step when installing servos. First thing is take your servo screws and run the screw in and out through every single servo mounting hole. What this is going to do is it's going to create threads in the wood where the servo is going to be mounted. Now, after we do that, so all I'm doing is running it in basically enough to where you can feel that there's no more tension and the threads are all they fall through the wood. And then what we're going to do is we're going to run some thin CA into those holes. What it's going to do is strengthen those holes because it's very thin balsa, and balsa isn't very strong or dense to begin with. It's very, very light. We use some CA to help put a layer on the wood. Makes the wood a little bit denser so that when you go to tighten the screw in there for when it goes permanent, we're good. Now, also, you don't want to use kicker for this because what your goal is to actually let the CA soak into the wood and just to strengthen the threads, basically creating threads in the balsa itself. So we're just going to let that sit. Hopefully it soaks into the wood, and then we can start installing servos. So we're going to go ahead and do that to the 2 horizontals for now, and then once the horizontals are complete, we'll move on to the wings. We also want to make sure we let the glue dry because we're also not trying to glue the servo to the surface. We want to be able to remove the servo in the future because servos do strip, they do burn out, they do have issues. So you will have to replace a servo at some point in the life, unless you crash it in 3 flights, and then you won't ever have to worry about it. It's the little steps in building an airplane that when they all come together, make a good airplane. Take your time, do it right, don't skip corners. Because it's very easy to skip this corner right here and not putting CA in it. And you won't see an issue for a long time. Until probably 6 months in, you go to check your servos, and then half of them are loose, jiggling in the sockets because every single screw is loose. And you go to try to tighten them up, and then it just pulls the balsa through with it, and then you can't tighten it up anymore. Now you're really frustrated. Anticipate that this airframe is going to last you a very long time. So if you do it right, the airframe should last you a long time. So something I'm also going to do is before I install any servo, is I'm going to check them. This airplane was in a crash, so you can never assume that all the servos are good. There could be a chipped tooth in them, or they could just be overall burnt out just from the crash. So highly recommend getting a servo tester. This little guy is awesome. It's the Spectrum XBC100 Smart Checker. It's a battery checker as well as a servo checker. So it's a great battery checker, and it's great for testing servos. So super convenient. So that one looks like it's working good. We'll put an arm on it so you guys can see it doing its servo-y thing. This screw is trapped in here. Release yourself. So it looks good. I'm also going to feel it, make sure I don't feel any clicking teeth. This one feels great. So that one's good to go. So now we're going to, since these servos are already put together, if you get brand new servos, they're going to come with these little bushings. You're going to want these. It will help a lot with the vibration, and it's how you have to mount them to the airplane. So the metal inserts go in the bottom, so that when you put a screw through the top, it actually will press against that, and you basically have a sense of a washer. Do they anticipate me doing it this way? Every airplane's a little bit different on the sense of how they want it oriented. Depends on what they found the geometry was, and that's why having the manual close by, just be able to glance at little things like this is beneficial. Yeah. So they actually want the it positioned this way with the spline closer to the horn itself. So that's just how they designed it. Some other airplanes are the opposite, but doesn't really make a difference. It does make a difference if you do it wrong and the airplane's not designed for it, because then you won't have links that are long enough, or you'll have a clearance issue. You will find that probably the elevators are the most pain in the butt. Maybe the next most pain in the butt is the throttle servo. Rudder and ailerons are a breeze, depending on airframe. Awesome. So the trick that I did for this airframe in particular, if you can see it, there's a little slot back there, and I put the wire in first, and now I'm pulling the wire through as I'm pulling the servo in. That way we can get this servo to seat in its little pocket. Just take your time with it. It is a bitch. Always remember, it is balsa wood. You can break it. There we go. Some light persuasion, and now we are in. And then we'll actually plug the servo tester into it. We'll center the servo and then get the arm as center as it can. It'll make our life a lot easier when programming it. Something we'll also do after the end is iron the whole thing. You're handling it a lot, so I'm not ironing it right now, because just from handling the aircraft, it can stretch out the covering. At least my understanding and my opinion of it. We don't want to go tight on these. All we're going to do is just go just till we start to see the rubber around the servo start to compress. And that's it. We're not cranking these down. You don't have a lot of meat to crank down. Alright, so now we'll have those in. We're going to plug the servo tester back up. We're going to center this guy. Ooh, beautiful. We want to get it as 90 as possible, because we're also going to mechanically trim the elevator with the servo 90. Everything should be 90, 90, 90s, as much as we can get it. That way, when we go to set it up, we're going to try to, we'll end up picking holes later on to get the best resolution that we can out of the control surface. And resolution is basically just using most of the servo to get the throw that we require. So we want to use like most of the servo travel and to get the throw that we want on the control surface. That's resolution. It'll make the aircraft feel better. It won't feel as jittery. It's like bouncing a screwdriver on your hand. It's really, really hard, but then you put a long rod or a long broomstick or something like that in your hand, and that's easier. Same kind of concept here. So something that like we don't want to do is put the holes, like if you go more farther out on this arm and then go closer in on this arm, that this one's going to move more proportionate to the servo. And that can make the airplane feel jittery. Sometimes it's what you need, sometimes it's not. So we're just trying to get it to where we have everything 90, control surface is 90, servo arm is 90, and also centered to the servo. That way we get the full travel of the servo in the same amount of degrees both ways. And we also get the throw that we require. With this airplane, we're probably going to shoot to get as much as we possibly can, with reason. So probably going to be somewhere in that range, back and forth. So now that the servo is centered, we're going to put some Loctite. Don't need a lot. That was a little bit too much. It came out quicker than I expected. Just need a little bit on the first couple threads, because you do want it to come out later at some point in its life. And even though it's blue Loctite, if you just absolutely cover the threads, it will be a bitch to get out later. We got AJ arms on an extreme flight aircraft. It's sacrilege. There's going to be extreme flight purists to be like, get those arms off our airplane. And guess what? I don't care. An arm's an arm. I'm going to do some links. So we're going to want a washer pretty much on every side for this. So for the ball link, we have a washer on this side. The benefit of that is it still allows rotation, but it captures the ball link so it can never pop out. If we didn't have a washer on this side, there is the possibility that ball link could actually pop out, and it's kind of a safety hazard. So this helps it capture and make sure it can't go anywhere. All right, so now we have, oh, they came with these little guys. Beautiful. So these little guys are awesome. They're little if you can see that they have a bit of a taper to them. So what we're going to do here is actually put that taper towards the ball link. And what that's going to do is going to allow the full travel of the ball link up and down. And then that is going to go on the arm itself. So most arms now, like this, and especially the metal ones, are threaded. So you get a bit of redundancy with them. Wonder if these screws are even going to work with this arm. They are not. So something to know about AJ specifically. AJ is standard. So if you're using AJ arms with an extreme flight aircraft, extreme flight is metric. So you're gonna run into issues there. So you have to use AJ's, you have to use standard hardware, because the screws that just came with the packet for the extreme flight will not thread into these arms. Not an issue, because I saved all the screws that came off of this airplane. So I'm just going to be using those when I'm having to screw into the arms itself. That's the only time that it actually matters, is because I'm having to screw into the arms. Not super tight, just a little snug. Going to put a washer on the other side of this guy. And then we have locking nuts. Now we are on to these guys. So immediately we already can tell that the arms aren't correctly adjusted, because the servo arm is 90. I'm holding the elevator perfect and the ball's not going to line up. So we're actually going to try to line these up now. Okay, as I was saying before I was rudely interrupted by the camera dying, I already have this. This is the other one. I just have it all set up. The arm is 90 degrees and the control surface is flat. So that's what we're trying to achieve, is we center the servo on the arm, put it as close to 90 as we possibly can, and then we make sure that the servo is 90 and then the link's all the control surface is flat. That will make our life a lot easier when we're trying to set up the aircraft later, and it'll make sure we have the proper throws in either direction that we want. So overall better. That's what we kind of want to try to achieve with this. Also, something to note is, I think I said it before, but extreme flight is standard as metric, and then AJs are standard. So I'm actually using the standard hardware because these servo arms are standard, so I have to use them. So I'm just going to do that just the way it's the same wrench for both these links and the nuts. Make life easier in the future. So we're going to go ahead and slap this guy on, and pretty cool little system here we got going on. It's one little capture nut that captures both sides. I don't know if you can see it in there. Let's see if we can turn you up just a hair so you can. You can see the both captures actually move in and out. So I'm gonna pull this guy out and slide this one in, and then we'll have elevators. All right, so now we got elevators. Now we just need to work on the rudder, and then the tail will be done. Then we'll go out on to working on the wings, which I will show you guys in a minute. But yeah, making progress. Also have it a little bit laid out on kind of where I wanted things, making sure that these cables will work. I think I'm gonna put the receiver right there, or is gonna go there. Batteries to be determined for placement. I think the IBEX is gonna go right there. I think it's a nice little place for it. And yeah, we're gonna try to have this thing done pretty quick. I'm just really hoping that carburetor actually does work. That was on that engine, so we will see. All right, so I wasn't actually going to show you the wings really that much, but I do gotta point out something that they did. I don't know if you can see it in there, but they put in, yeah, you can. They put in a little tube for the wires to run through. I freaking love that. It made it so easy to run the wire and just push it all the way through. You don't have to worry about having a piece of string that's supposed to be there and then pull it through or anything like that. It's the little things. I just love that little tube. It made it so easy. It also captures it so it doesn't allow the wire to want to rattle everywhere. So overall, I wish more airframes really did that. Just had to point that out. Good job, freaking Extreme Flight. That's awesome. All right, so I'm going to show you a little bit on what we really mean by resolution. So the reason that these arms are on here, because these are the arms that I have that he had for his AJ. They're 2-inch arms, and I'm afraid that they're not going to be the best resolution for this airplane. I think I can make them work, but really we need like 1.5 inch arms for this airplane. Now, we can see that it's centered. Now, if I go to, which that's probably about as much we're going to have, the servo is not traveling that much. Now, we can still probably get this to work, but what I really would prefer is that we get almost about 40 or 50 degrees of travel on the servo itself to achieve the throw that we want on the aileron. We're going to still set this up, see if we can do this, but if the servo is only traveling, say, like 30 degrees back and forth, and it's giving us the throw we want here, we're not getting the full resolution out of this servo. Then going in and actually being able to use more of the travel of the servo to get the throw that we want on the surface will make the aircraft feel better. It won't feel as jittery, it won't feel as very touchy, because we'll be able to use a lot of the servo itself to smoothen out the flight of the aircraft. So I'm going to see if Ryan has 1.5 inch arms, 1.5 inch arms to make this a little bit better. I'm going to try to see if I can make these 2-inch arms work for the most part, but it's not the best solution. So that's also why you don't want to, on a 3D aircraft, it's not just like getting the longest arm and the most travel as you possibly can, because we're only going to look for about 38 degrees of throw on max on the ailerons itself. About 38 up and 37 down. And if we're doing that, which is probably going to be about that much. It does throw a lot. I wish that it would throw a little bit more, but so I think we can get away with these arms. So keep that in mind. If an airframe recommends that you use 1.5 inch arms for the ailerons, I would abide to that. I wouldn't try to like, oh, I want the most throw you possibly can get out of your airframe, because that doesn't really make it fly better or perform in any positive way. It's probably gonna hurt you in the long run. All right, so we got the servos installed, we got the aileron centered, and the arms on both servos are 90, and then we'll be able to sync them with the Aura later on. But great start is having aileron centered, 90, 90, everything's square, and be good to go. All right, well, that's probably going to be it for today. Probably going to jump right into tomorrow. I don't have a lot to do tomorrow. I'm going to update you on what I just kind of did. So as you saw, all the control surfaces are done. Most of the wiring is done, and all I got to do is pretty much all up front. So I'll show you. So as you saw, control surfaces are done, the wings are done, And inside, we got wires run through the tail. We got our ignition light. I saw Ryan did this on his last plane, put his ignition light right here so it actually lights up the canopy. So I'm probably going to start adopting that. I know he wants it, so I'm probably going to adopt that to my planes as well. And we got everything's pretty much wired. I guess still got to tape some things down, put some Velcro in, and put that down. Believe that's where that's going to live. I think the batteries are going to go up front, possibly here, even possibly back here. That's just battery placement is to be determined when whatever we need for CG. We have ignition is mounted. IBEC is mounted. Wires are run for that. So only thing really left that I need to do, plugs are in, is basically up front here. So I got the throttle servo is set up. I still need to program it, so it's not set up, but it's in and wired. And then I got to install the exhausts, and then I can start cutting that guy out, measuring to do the holes for all that. I also have to do the spinner, so it's a nice matching spinner. So I'll have to drill that out. Luckily the prop's already drilled, so I don't have to worry about that. Drilling through carbon is a B. So got to drill that out, place that, and basically once I cut the cow, I think the most pain thing I got left is cutting the cow. Once the cow's cut, props mounted, then it's just straight into programming. So I should have this thing ready to go by tomorrow. I do have I don't remember if I talked about this, but this arm that we had on the AJ is too long, so it needs to be a 1.5 for the tail because it needs to be up here for the geometry. And I just put this here just for now as a placeholder, just so I hold this. But that's going to be a shorter arms to help for that tail. And yeah, so we're going to snap to tomorrow, and hopefully we are programming this thing and I get to walk you through that. Let's do it. Good morning, everybody. So next day, hoping to see if we can finish this thing up today. We will just see what happens. So I'm going to tackle the thing that I've been kind of putting off the entire time, which is the cowl. I really don't enjoy doing the cowls, but I'm going to show you how I kind of do it to make it a little bit easier. So first thing is loosely install the exhaust. I don't got any sealant. They're not tight. They're just on the airplane. And now what we're going to do is we're going to make ourselves a little bit of template out of some nice thin cardboard. You also can use foam board, whatever you want to use. Hopefully something kind of rigid. That way I'm going to cut it out. I'm going to tape it to the airframe and then lay it flat. And I'm going to trace out the circles, take the exhaust off, put the cowl on, and then use that template to get me really close. And then we can cut those holes and then start to slowly fine tune the cowl to make it work. So we're going to go ahead and slap this thing on and start making our template. All right, so this is what we got. I got my template. I drew my holes. Something you don't want to do is you don't really want to like push this up flat to it, because that's actually going to change the geometry how it was. You want this as flat or as to what it was when you had the exhaust on it, and then try your best to really just trace it around slowly. And the holes are going to be small. They're not going to be exact. So this is all this is going to do is it's going to get us damn close to where we can slowly make the holes bigger and bigger and bigger to where they really nicely fit the exhaust. But this gives us a very good starting point. All right, so the cowl is now done. Um, Still need to. I'll cross that road if I need to. If I need to actually put something in for this, or it already has a hole in here, so I'm wondering if you can finger blast it to put the choke on. So we'll take that by ear. But yeah, when you're doing these guys, just take your time. It is a very slow process. It's a tedious process. If it's the first time you cutting one of these cows, just go very slowly. Take a little bit off of a time. Spend all day on it if you need to, because it's really annoying when you screw it up, and it looks like crap when you screw it up. So just go very slow, take your time, and eventually it will work and it will look good. Something you also can do, I don't have it, but getting like this little tubing like Ryan had, this kind of helps with it fraying over time and hopefully looking better longer. So I'm probably gonna, when I give this to him, he can put that tubing around it if he wants to, because I don't have any in my shop. So, but I left him enough all around on the bottom as well to make sure that he could, if he wanted to. So yeah, cowling's finally done. Now we can go ahead and we'll lightly put it up, and we're gonna start working on the prop, because we still got to cut drill the spinner out for it. So hopefully, I haven't drilled a spinner out in a long time, so hopefully I can still not screw that up. But yeah, let's go ahead and start working on the spinner. Alright, so prop is lightly on there, and spinner fits nice and even, not a bad gap. Also, something I didn't talk about is you want to make sure that you get your engine spacing with the cowling before you ever cut for these. I didn't mention it because they already had the engine mounted. I probably would have, if I mounted it, probably would have got it a hair closer, but it's all right. Gives it room to move and stuff like that. So make sure that you get your engine spacing with the washers and everything. Get it as close to the spinner as we can, because the closer it is, the better it is, because it looks better. But yeah, so make sure that we even have room to where we could definitely and maybe if we wanted to take some material out of here to bring the engine back just a hair, we could. So, but yeah, it's looking good. So all we're gonna do now is, God, what is left now? I know I have to take it all back apart. I gotta torque spark plugs. I gotta once I program everything, I gotta set throttle. I like having the cowling off when I set the throttle, because I can have the arm off and look at the throws and stuff, because it's very easy to burn out a throttle servo. You'll turn it on, the throw will be off, you'll be binding the entire time if you're trying to program stuff, and then you go to use it and it's not working. Ask me how I know. So we'll have the cowling off and everything for the programming. And then we just got to button some things down. Got to put some Velcro in there. Got to place a light battery. I got to put some Velcro on the ignition. Strap it down. And yeah, I think it's just programming. All right, let's do some programming. So only thing I've done is I disconnected the arm to the throttle servo when I power up for the first time, because it's probably not going to be that right. I'm assuming the throws should be centered when they first initial power on, but I'll be ready to unplug if like it starts to really bind. It's for some reason really off. The rudder is not plugged in because I'm still waiting on a shorter arm for that guy. But it does mean that we can go ahead and have everything in the correct place. So what I'm going to do is this Aura is already has a program in it from the last airplane. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to try to, I think I'm going to try to mimic it. I don't know if I'm going to decide to completely redo it. Cool. So it's not powering on because it's not bound to a radio, which is fine for now. I just want to read it. And we're going to go through the servo ports. So probably should have wings plugged in just to have it right. Damn. Okay. I want to put the wings on. Be right back. Alright, now that the wings are on. So all I'm going to try to figure out now is with the multi-connector, just like which one is inner and outer and is plugged into that. So that's all I'm going to try to figure out now. Port 1 should be left aileron outer. Yep, so that one's the inner, which means this one is the outer. So that needs to go to 1. And this one goes to 2. Something else to know is you can use, there's 2 serial ports in the Aura. There's an A and a B. If you wanted to have 2 redundant receivers going into the same receiver, you can do that. Into the same Aura. So just make sure if you're using one like we are, then we're going to make sure that it says, oh, see, that's why we verify. It's already set up to B, so I'm just going to plug it up to B. Not really. There's no difference between the two. But we're just going to have it in B just so that that works. It's on Spectrum. So on the first page of the Aura, the first page of the Aura is where you're going to do a lot of your like big setup. So first one you'll see is AJ Slick. I'm actually going to change that name. Probably going to change it to something funny so that when he opens this up, but might not be able to show you what I put into it because it might be crude. We have next one, Aura dual rates and Expo. We're actually going to do Expo in the Aura. It's in the radio, so we're going to turn that off. Auto detect signal if no power on, off, allow quick, off, allow quick trim via bind plug S3. I guess we have that on. That's fine. We'll leave that. This is also where you'll change the configuration on the direction of the Aura. This is basically how we have it set up in the aircraft right now, so we don't need to change that. Channel 5 is going to be flight modes or the gear switch. That's fine. This is also where you'll put your transmitter. We're using Spectrum. We're going to use serial XSRXL for this one, and we're plugged into port B. And now it should all work. What I was also looking at is the servo ports. So if you go through each servo port, this servo port is in conjunction with what's on the Aura itself. So S1 is supposed to be left aileron out. So that's what I just did. You just saw me do, go through each one of these channels, make sure that they're plugged into the correct point. And radio setup should be very simple. I'm going to have to rechange all of these throws and everything because it was a different airplane. But we'll see how far off they are. And the radio setup itself is just going to be basic. Set it up as 1 aileron, 1 elevator, 1 rudder. Put on, we also are going to have a flight mode switch and a ignition switch. That's it. And then all your servo throws for the radio, you're going to set for Spectrum specifically to 125 on up, down, on every single surface. You're not going to do any sub trim, any throw adjustment, anything like that in the radio. You're going to do all that adjustment in the Aura itself. Reason for that is if you do any adjustment like that in the radio, the Aura doesn't know that. So it thinks you're flying the airplane constantly, and it's going to throw off on how the gyro feels if you're using a gyro. So that's why you want to do all the setup itself in the Aura. Now also what makes it really simple is if you do all the setup in the Aura, mainly what Ryan's using this for is just if he ever needed to replace a receiver, wanted to go to a different radio or something like that, it takes 2 seconds. I'm actually going to do all the setup in my radio, and then once we get this thing to the field with his radio, it'll take me just literally 2 seconds to put in the basic throws, bind his radio to the receiver, good to go. So that's also a cool part about the Aura, is all the memory and the setup of the actual aircraft is in the Aura itself and not the radio. So just makes it easy. So yeah, now we're going to go ahead and bind up the radio, and we'll see how far off we are. All right, so we have the airplane bound up. You can see that it's all off right now. So what I'm going to do first to fix this issue is I'm going to zero, because I know this is a software that was in the other airplane. I'm going to zero everything out, make sure all the sub trims, anything like that is zero, and then I want to go and try to maybe take the arm off, adjust it as close to it, and then when the arm is 90 from that point, adjust it mechanically to 0, and then I'll start to do little throw adjustments. We're going to try to get it as close to center mechanically first, and also all the arms 90 before we just start throwing a bunch of trim in it. Because if you're trying to trim this thing out, it would eventually limit the amount of throw you would have with your servo, and we don't want that. So we're going to go ahead and zero everything out, take arms off, adjust it, make sure arms are 90, mechanically to 0 with all the control surfaces, and that's what I'm gonna get it ready to do. So I'll get back with you. Something I also I did off camera was I disconnected the outer arm. Reason for that, because I didn't want them to constantly bind, because we have to sync those. So when you're doing a control surface that has 2 servos on them, when you're first setting it up, disconnect. I usually recommend the outer one. You could do the inner one, whatever you want, but disconnect one of them. And that way, when you're setting it up, you get it close, and then you start setting up. I'll show you exactly how I do it, but always make sure you disconnect one for the first time you power it up. All right, so I went in and took off. The only one where I really had to adjust was this one for some reason. The only one I had to really adjust was this one. For some reason, it was slightly off. But so I zeroed everything in the Aura. There's no trims in the radio. It's everything is 0. And now I got the arm as close to 90 as I possibly can. This servo, you can see that it's, if you can tell on camera, it's slightly off, so that I'll have to sub trim. And I did the same for the other side. Now, I also know when I assembled this with the arms 90, I already had it mechanically done. So, for example, what I'm gonna end up talking about is this wing. You can see that it's slightly off. Now, I don't want to adjust this mechanically yet, because even the arm is slightly 90, so I actually had to sub trim that out just slightly. So all I have to do now to sub trim is in the Aura. Also, a quick little tip, get this so you can see this better, is on view, make sure you're in advanced view. A lot of these little things that you won't be able to see unless you're in, like, if you're quick adjust view, normal view, whatever, just keep it in advanced view. That way you can see everything that you need. We're gonna go to left. We'll start with, yeah, left aileron. So what we're gonna do here is we're gonna start to, I'm going to make sure that this is, because how they have it, whoever did this, they have aileron, left aileron 1 out, and left aileron 2 out. Usually I do inner and outer, inner to the fuselage, and then outer for the wingtips. It makes it a little bit more, makes a little more sense to me. So let's see, this hopefully one should be the inner. If I just put like 50 in here. If it's the inner, we'll see this move. Nope, so that is out. So aileron out. So we'll put this back to 0. So that means aileron 2 is in. That's how I like to type them in. That makes it makes sense to everybody. You know, when I say inner, You know what I mean? The innermost servo to the airframe. All right, let's do the, make sure we have it. So right aileron, so let's see, which one are you? So now we're gonna go to the left one. In. And the cool part, so also another thing is, if you have live data on, then you'll be able to see these little live saves. And this is how I do a lot of my trimming and like throw adjustment. So you can click these one at a time, and that's going the wrong way. So I can just start clicking this guy. Are you clicking? All the way until it's money. Oh, one more. So only got to go down 19 for that, which is that's a very small amount. So then I'll go ahead and do that to the elevators, go ahead and sub trim those out. And then I'm also for the syncing these guys. The process that I go through is I will sub trim them to where they line up perfectly in here. And then I'll go ahead and go to full throw on this servo, full throw, whatever my degree is. So I'll set like 38 up, 37 down, and then we'll go ahead and set these in there. And then I'll do the same for the opposite. So I'm basically setting the peaks for each point, center, up, and down. And then these guys will be synced and ready to go. Also, a new trick that I have started to adopt was these are two carbon fiber rods. They're straight, which is the most important thing. You can probably use anything, just something that is very straight. And I actually tape them to both sides because we don't really care about the throw on the elevator. At least I don't. All I care is that they're synced. So the best thing is for center, see that they're both right next to each other. Full deflection. Let's make sure. Full deflection, right next to each other. And down, right next to each other. That's what's going to make the biggest difference with the elevator, is just making sure that they are perfectly synced. For the many years, I've actually tried to eyeball these. It doesn't work, apparently, because my plane actually was having a lot of issues just with full deflection maneuvers on the elevator, and I really found out that it was because that they weren't actually synced. So I actually started doing this, and it helped a lot. Be quiet, I know you're low. So, yeah, good little trick for you guys. All right, so as you see, I pulled the wings back off so I could just do a little fiddly things. Only thing that I really did off camera, I'll show you, and also I got halted from something. Possibly getting it fixed either today or tomorrow. We'll see what Ryan comes back with. So, what we got is I went ahead and tightened up the rest of the wires because now everything is plugged in the correct spot. I used Shugu on the plugs. I know you guys have probably seen me do that in the past, but a little bit of Shugu right on the tip of the plugs. This helps from vibration. They won't come back out. And also when you're ready, you can also peel it right off. And I did that on every single one of these plugs. Also, I'm going to probably start with the battery placement. It's going to be about right here. So that way we can see where the CG is. We have a lot of places we can put the batteries. We can put them up here if we really need it. Here, back here. We could even like tie them all the way back here if we ended up needing to. So we'll play that by ear on where the batteries are going to end up going to live. So this is tied down. The ignition was secured. I went ahead and finished the plumbing. I prefer to use safety wire. It's just what I've always have done, and I really prefer the look, and I think it's a little bit better than a zip tie. And now the only thing left that I have to do is basically permanently mount the exhausts. I've always used high temp silicone for the exhaust. I actually don't have any more, so that's what I'm waiting on. Probably going to go get some of that tomorrow or some of the sort to be able to finish that off. Got to put a screw into the throttle because I set that up, so that's ready to go with the radio. And then once I get a servo arm, I can finish that, which that will take 2 seconds to do that at the field. But other than that, the aircraft is ready to go. Wings are done. Yeah, I think it turned out pretty well. I like the look. And yeah, so this is going to be the end of the build video because the only thing left I got to do is mount exhaust, which you guys have seen me mount exhaust on the last 2 airplanes. If you guys want to see me on how I mount exhaust, please look at the rest of the channel. Watch some of my other build videos. I got a lot of little tidbits of things that I've learned and screwed up in the past, and maybe you can learn something from them. So thank you so much for watching. Hopefully the next video is going to be us maidening this, maybe on Thursday. So that video might come out pretty quick, and Ryan hopefully ripping it. And so thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye. Oh,